Podcast with Michael Roper here, and this is episode number 495. Welcome to our podcast. Today's episode is going to be about why most building automation systems are underutilized, and more importantly, what you can do to change that. Now, throughout our episode today, we're going to be covering segments and topics such as what underutilized really means, how is a BAS system considered to be underutilized, and what are some examples of underutilization. We'll also talk about why it happens in the first place. Why are these systems being underutilized? And then we'll also get into some missed opportunities, some things that you could do today to start utilizing your building automation system like it was designed to be, and being able to use all the features that's included, and more importantly, that you paid for as well if you're a building owner. Okay. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into our first segment here. And in our first segment, what we're going to do is we're going to define what does underutilized mean. Okay. So basically, whenever you go up to a building automation system, it might be a brand new system. It might be there for 10 years. And you'll see these quite often, and they're being used like basic thermostats. All right. There's no dynamic control platform. All we're doing is making set points, adjusting set points, and maybe even doing like a simple time of day schedule. Maybe that schedule is not optimized to reach its full potential, but that is one example, and they usually just act as a basic thermostat. Okay, it could be a basic programmable thermostat in some cases. So they're not really utilizing advanced features that they could be, like trending and some other applications that might be built into the user interface software. Okay. So most systems that I've encountered that's, been in operation for maybe after a year or so, after it's been fully commissioned, from the BAS vendor, you'll see them just using basic schedules. Okay. This is stuff that the building owners can do, the building operators in most cases. There might be some building operators and engineers that can do more advanced. I've seen a lot of them that were actually better at me at doing some of the legacy type systems, like some of the text-based building automation systems. If you remember those back in the day, like maybe an old Barber Coleman system or a Train Tracer 100 system, these are more complex systems. But the Windows-based customers, I noticed that they would use basic schedules. I mean, that's pretty easy to do if they were properly trained. Okay. Sometimes we'll talk about some issues with schedules later on in this episode, though, if they're not properly trained. Also, simple alarm thresholds as well. They know how to set up some simple alarms. Maybe if they have a fan failure, they might be able to set a threshold, like a set point, maybe a temperature set point threshold. Okay, if it high temp limit, things like that, you might see those things. And some occasional overrides of equipment. Okay, this could be overriding equipment, schedules, things like that. Okay, so most systems, they use kind of just basic features. A lot of times they're going to be overlooking, like I talked about before, advanced resets. Okay, maybe you have a VAV unit, air handling unit, or a rooftop unit. You can do a supply air reset, okay, or a duct static pressure reset. Okay. These are in modern building automation control systems in the user interface. A lot of these applications are built into the software anyways. Now, it does take some time to learn how to use this software, and maybe even the theory of how it works too as well. So there's two pieces to it. You got to understand the theory, and then you got to understand how to set it up in the software. Okay, so there's two issues or two tasks that the building owner has to learn there. Also, they overlook analytics. It could be simple analytics like, power monitoring or something like that. Could be trending too. And trending's considered an analytic, right? So they're not really using analytics, even though they probably already paid for it and it's in their system, but they're not using it. Okay. They might not even know about it. They might want it. If you're listening to this and you're a building automation professional, you might want to talk to them about that. If they have any energy goals, do they have any goals for LEED certification or something like that? So those analytics will help in that case to do that. Also, a lot of things they're not going to overlook or they are going to overlook is custom sequence of operations. Okay. So maybe not just a cookie cutter spec, on a rooftop, a VAV air handler job with, VAV boxes. Maybe there's some custom sequences that can help save energy for their building design. Okay. They also overlook integration points. Okay. There could be other systems in their building, and they could be living with two different systems in their building. All right. So that's being underutilized because you can bring that all in and consolidate it on one building automation system if they're open protocol. Okay. Or you can use an integration device to do that. It's going to make it simpler to manage the whole system at that point. Okay. So basically, if you're not tapping into the control logic, digging into more custom sequence of operation, optimizing routines, you're leaving the performance on the table. You're not utilizing your system the way it was designed to be. Okay. So that wraps up that segment. That's kind of some examples what underutilized means. Okay. You probably can think of some examples too. You've seen that out in the field, or maybe if you're sitting here as a building operator, you're like, yeah, I don't think I am utilizing my system 100%. But that's okay, because we'll get into some ideas and why this happens and things like that. So that leads us to our next segment, why this happens in the first place. Okay. So based on my experience, what I've seen out in the field, whenever these building automation systems are being underutilized, it's because of training gaps. All right. And there's just not enough time to do this. Techs don't get deep exposure to full platform capabilities. Okay. They might know just the basic, operation of the user interface and maybe some of the service tool software as well. They don't know the full capabilities that it can do. A lot of times on plan and spec jobs, they're only going to spec maybe 4 to 8 hours of training. So the BAS professional, we're going to have to put as much as we can in that 4 to 8 hour, whatever it is, time frame of the most important parts to be able to educate our customers. Okay. And by doing that, you're going to have some training gaps. There's going to be a lot of things that techs don't quite understand. They might understand how to override a set point, but they might not understand the consequence of not releasing that set point. Or if you override something that shouldn't be overridden and we have a process going on, it could cause further damage to the system. Okay. Or they might just not know some of the capabilities that it's able to do. Also, one thing that we all see today is poor turnover. We have a high turnover rate in building automation technicians right now. There's just not enough building automation technicians out there. Okay, new staff are handed a running system with no clue how or even why it works in some cases. They might have a somewhat of a background in HVAC, or they might have some kind of a technical background, but you hand them over a chill water plant or a very complex building automation system, they might not even know how it works. They might have never seen a chiller before or a boiler, and they're just learning on the job. So, and a lot of times some of the lead techs, they're too busy managing the building to provide in-house training. Okay. So that poor turnover and the training gaps kind of go together a little bit on that. Okay. A third thing that I've seen out in the field, and you've probably seen this too, is time constraints. Fixing issues takes priority over system improvement. All right. A lot of these office buildings or hospitals, they're run on a shoestring budget in the maintenance department for some reason. Not all cases, but a lot of times they are. And there's not enough manpower to fix everything in the building. So they're constantly being flooded with calls, maybe, to fix things that are down. They might have projects that they're supposed to be working on, amongst other things, meetings. So fixing issues and focusing, digging in and learning a new system and learning new things is not a priority. The priority is keeping their tenants comfortable and also making sure their building is operating efficiently, so they don't use too much energy. Okay. So time constraints is a big deal. A lot of times we might not have time to educate our in-house staff on how to do that. Also, budget limits. All right. So it runs, and that becomes the goal, not it runs efficiently. So as long as it's running, that's fine. So the budget limits, that's as far as it goes. We don't have enough money to invest in more labor or more time for our in-house uh, technicians to learn advanced uh, programming techniques. Okay, so there could be some budget limits on that. Another one that I've seen is complexity fears. A lot of this, a lot of modern building automation equipment or software on the user interface is very complex. Okay, it can be intimidating for new people that come into our field because if you think about it, a building automation professional doesn't just have to understand the user interface, which a lot of times can be very complicated, but they also got to understand how HVAC systems work too, as well. So just taking the time to learn a new software could take a while, could be intimidating, and they could get burnt out and just give up. Okay. So we really got to take those step by step. And the best thing to do really is to get factory training from the manufacturer. Okay. That's the best option really. But that could affect your budget limit. It could affect all these different points that I talked about, time constraints. You might not have time to go travel somewhere to go to a training facility. Or maybe even if it's online, you might not have time to do that. Budget limits, it's expensive. Training is expensive. So it is an investment on that. Okay. So that wraps up our second segment, why it happens in the first place. Let's go ahead and go on to our third segment, and we're going to talk about some missed opportunities. These are some common things that are missed that we can probably, fix fairly easy. One thing that's pretty common is a no set point reset. Okay, and that's wasted energy. All right, so a lot of times if we have a discharge air reset or a supplier reset on an air handler or even a chill water system. So if there's no set point reset based on outside air conditions or even space conditions, we're wasting energy. And that kind of ties back into what I was talking about budget limits too. If you can invest a little time to train your in-house technicians how important that set point reset is and how much energy that conserves, you can use that saved energy, the money you saved in energy, to invest in your technician's education. Okay. Once they get educated and they stay with you, that's just profit at that point, or money savings that you can reinvest in your business or your company. Another missed opportunity is alarms that's flooding the system and it's causing fatigue and ignored faults. Okay. So it's loading up your alarm log. It's congested. There's things in there that, you're not being aware of. Okay. It's getting in the way of you being able to properly operate your system. So alarms are flooding the system. They can also cause potential memory issues too, as well, if they're not cleared out. Some of these alarms are not even needed anymore. So that's one thing we could do too to utilize our system better is only use the alarms that are needed. Okay. Don't keep old alarms in your alarm log. Make sure those are cleared out and taken care of. Also, another missed opportunity is no trend data. We talked about this a little bit in the first segment. Trending is a form of analysis. And it also helps us not only analyze for energy efficiency, predictive maintenance too, as well, or predictive failures, I guess you could say too. So we can predict potential failures of equipment before it goes down. We can also use it to troubleshoot specific things. Maybe you're having a space temperature reach high temp limits at certain times of the day, and we found out it was because of some kind of external condition. Someone was making coffee in the break room, and that's why it was doing that, or something. I don't know. That's just one example. It might be a crazy example, but trend data is very helpful in determining energy efficiency and also for troubleshooting. Also, one thing that's really important too is not getting feedback from occupants or even the facility teams via the dashboards. All right. So if occupants, are not telling you they're not comfortable, then you don't know, but they're probably complaining quietly within their own departments. So really going over there and interviewing the occupants on a regular basis is good. Just check in. Are things going okay in here? Is everything conditions comfortable? I know like a lot of you are probably thinking right now, if people are uncomfortable, they will definitely tell you for sure. But, getting feedback's good. You might even ask them, does it ever get hot or cold at certain times of the day? Okay. That's like a human trend log right there. They could just tell you, yeah, at 3 o'clock, it gets hotter than in the morning. Or maybe ask them about the humidity. Is anybody getting headaches? Anybody feeling tired? Okay. Those are some symptoms of high CO2, right? So you might want to implement CO2 control or demand control ventilation. Okay. Another thing is no predictive maintenance logic. All right. So being underutilized means you need to probably have some kind of a BAS maintenance routine. All right. So sometimes you can either, sub that out to the manufacturer where you bought it from, or you can make, your own maintenance schedule in-house. ASHRAE has its own recommendations for building automation maintenance. We recently did a podcast on that. Also, just being able to keep up with that and maintaining software, making sure we're making backups, things like that. Also, a missed opportunity. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Control sequences are often not aligned with actual operational needs. Okay. So maybe we have a time of day schedule that schedule doesn't exist anymore. We used to have, maybe it's a school. We used to have PTO meetings every Monday at, 5 o'clock, but it's summertime now and that schedule is still active. Okay. So nobody's even going to the PTO meeting, and we're going to go ahead and lower our set points in the summertime. And that's going to consume a lot of electrical energy, obviously, due to that. Okay. For however many hours it was on there. So you're just wasting energy on that. It's being underutilized. Okay. Because of that control sequence. Okay. All right. Well, that wraps up segment number 3, just some missed opportunities that we've seen out in the field so far. Now we're going to talk about some things that you can do about it specifically. All right. So we're going to get into, I'll audit your alarm configuration. So we talked about this a little bit. You have a messy alarm log. So just go in there and make sure that alarms make sense. All right. Do you really need these alarms? All right. Clean that up. Also, we need to audit our trend logs. Okay. Are they even being on? A lot of times you'll set one up or somebody will set one up and it won't even be active, or somebody has disabled the trend for some reason. Okay. And also not even if they're even on or even being recorded. If they are being recorded, are they even being reviewed? I mean, a lot of times we'll see trend logs set up for years and no one's even looking at them. Okay. Some cases you might have to do it, turn these in for compliance and they'll be reviewed by somebody else. All right. But that's some things you got to ask yourself is, are these trend logs even being reviewed by anybody? Are we having meetings about them? Are we seeing if there's ways we can improve based on this trend data? Okay. Another easy one you can do is just check your set points. Okay. And have they been tuned since the first commissioning? Okay. So a lot of times the design engineer, the mechanical engineer will design it based on building loads. Those set points might be there based on building loads too, the calculation. Have we lowered those set points too much in the summertime? All right. Have we raised them up too much? Things like that. And just make sure they're in check with the system design on that part. So another thing we could do is we can leverage what's already built in. So a lot of times, like I said before, your user interface software, the most modern BAS software today, has got tons of diagnostic tools built into it, trending modules, all kinds of different trends. Could be some logic templates. Okay. It could be some pre-built programs that you can use already that you don't even have to write programs. Okay. AI today can write programs, right? We're getting to that point in the future where there's going to be a time where you can just type into a prompt somewhere. I predict, you know, uh, create, a simple air handler, a single zone air handler program, and it's going to, with your specific manufacturer and the software, then it's going to be able to produce that for you. Now that might be several years down the road, but just understanding basic logic templates will also help your in-house staff being able to troubleshoot the system. Okay. Being aware of what all your system does, that's just going to help your in-house staff manage your system better and understand your system. Some things we can do, like we talked about, is document your work. Okay. Leave some information, leave some breadcrumbs for the next tech that has to go up and fix the system that you're working on. All right. So if that includes like redlining, drawings. Okay. And what that means, if you don't know what that means, is basically we need, if something's been changed since the first or from the original design and the original commissioning, maybe you removed a discharge air temp, or maybe you removed a humidity sensor, or you added any of these items. This needs to be documented, okay, with the model number, with the part number and all that stuff. That way the technicians, if they ever have to work on it, they're aware of this, that's in there, and then they know what exactly they need to research in case they need to like review a schematic or some kind of cut sheet. Okay. Also, we talked about interviewing occupants. Talk with the operators. If you're a building automation professional and you have a customer and you think that they might not be utilizing their system well, of course, just go talk to the operator. Match sequences with the building behavior, and introduce them with some different sequences. There might be some things that they can do that was not identified in the original design. Okay. So think about that. Or it could be because of a budget constraint at the time. All right. So learning one advanced feature at a time could be a great monthly goal to do this. Okay. So maybe even just have in-house training. If you have one person that can be a subject matter expert, have them research that, have them study the manual. If you don't want to sub this out to the original manufacturer, you can do that. Right? If you're a building automation professional, talk to your customers about maybe having a lunch and learn at your office. Bring them in there. You have the projector in there. You can do a presentation. You can do a demo. You can show them these features. This is going to, when you do this, it's going to solidify your relationship with your customer even more. Okay. And maybe just do once a month, one lunch and learn a month, or go out to their job site and do it. Okay. Those are some good ideas to do that. Another thing, and we live in modern technology. We're immersed in it today. We have all kinds of resources, digital resources out there, guys. You can watch YouTube tutorials. There's so many YouTube videos out there now. Okay, our Smart Buildings Academy, we have tons of podcasts you can listen to if you want to. You can just put your earbuds in and listen to what we're talking about. Join user groups, Twitter X, whatever you call it now, Facebook, if you use that, Instagram. There's user groups, believe it or not, for building automation systems everywhere. Okay. So look for social media. There's a lot of groups there and you can ask questions. That's kind of like a forum of a bunch of professionals where we can talk and trade stories and information and tips. And that just will ultimately get you better in the long run. And making those connections can also help too, in case you have to reach out and you can just form a relationship with these people in these groups and ask them questions. Okay. Also, tap into the vendor resources. Based on what I've seen, some vendors have some really great information. Some of it's pretty scarce. So if you can't find information, if you're a building owner and you're listening to this, get with your BAS provider and ask them for some resources to help understand your system better. Don't be shy about asking them. They probably would be happy to do that for you. Collaborate with peers. Okay. and show each other what works. Okay. So this is about team building within your BAS team at your company. All right. Collaborate with each other, ask each other questions, show each other how to do stuff. Okay. If someone learns something new, like we talked about, have them teach the rest of the group. These are some great ideas on how to do that. Okay. So those are some things on what we can do about it. Let's go over some easy wins that we could tackle right now. Those are some things that might take a little time to talk about and to introduce. Right now, in our last segment here, we're going to talk about some things you can do right now. So right now, what you could do, like we talked about before, is you can go to your alarm log, check out your alarm log or your customer's alarm log. If there's any unhelpful alarms, okay, anything that doesn't pertain, or maybe you fixed an issue that you don't need that alarm anymore, notification. Okay, if there's any critical alarms, make sure those are checked. And once you check those, and then you can clear them out by acknowledging those alarms in the alarm log. Okay, so clear those out. And do not put don't add any more alarms that are unnecessary. Okay, prioritize the ones that matter. Okay. So another thing we could do is turn on key trends. So some key trends that we want to look at only if we're having issues with a unit or a space. Okay. You don't want to put trends on every unit if you don't want to, because obviously that takes up memory. Okay. We don't want to be consuming all the memory within our controllers all the time. So some key trends that we can look at if you're having issues is like supply air temp. Okay. That's a great input to perform troubleshooting with. Okay. Outside air temperature is a good one too, because obviously that one engages a lot of different systems. It enables your hot water and chill water system. It enables the outside air economizing. It does, morning warm up. It checks that too as well. Things like that. Valve percentage. Okay, that's a great one too, especially on VAV boxes if you're having trouble in a space. We want to trend what position that valve is in. Okay. You could do valve position and zone temp. We can see what the zone temp's doing and compare that to the valve temp at the certain periods of time in the building. Okay, so zone temp's another good one. Or discharge temp on a hydronic system. Also, what we could do is fix schedule errors. Now, this is a big one too, and we talked about this a little bit, but schedules are a big deal. Okay, buildings shouldn't run 24/7. If your customer has any space that's running 24/7, you need to ask them why. And you probably, if you're a building owner, you can ask yourself why we're running this 24/7 if it's not needed. And I know we all try to shut these down when we can, but if we could schedule those to shut off, that's good. Also, like I said before, if if you have an exception to the schedule or something like that, or maybe you're scheduling something that does not exist anymore, you need to remove that because that's wasting energy. Okay. All right. Also, tune loops on the PID loops. That's hunting. This might be more of like an advanced feature, and you might have to, if you're a building owner, maybe ask your BAS provider, what would be some rules of thumb for the loops, the P and the I and the D and things like that. But really, unless you're experienced in doing that, I don't know if I'd recommend doing that right away. This would be something more for your BAS provider to go out and do, and just maybe during their preventative maintenance check, just kind of see if if the equipment is meeting the space conditions in a reasonable time, or if it's taking forever to get to set point, or if it's never getting to set point. That's whenever you might want to start looking at loop tuning. That's hunting, and then trend that data, like we said before. If it's a VAV box, you can trend the discharge air temp and the supply and the zone temp and kind of see what's going there. And then also the valve position as well. Okay. Also, last thing on here is verify your sensors are accurate and they're within calibration according to the manufacturer data. So get a reference sensor that's been calibrated that is true. And then test that against what you're actually reading in on your zone sensor. Okay, make sure it's accurate. Okay. All right. Well, that pretty much is all I'm going to talk about this week. Thank you very much for listening to the Smart Buildings Academy podcast. I hope you learned a lot from this episode. If you found this episode valuable, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're watching this on LinkedIn, please share this with your network. And always, if you ever want to find this video, this will be available on our website at podcastsmartbuildingsacademy.com/495. All right, well, that sounds good. Thank you very much, and we'll